Hi there, we're a group of 3 academics from the University of Leeds. I'm Dr Dani Barrington from the School of Civil Engineering. This is Dr Bethan Davies from the School of Languages, Cultures and Societies. And this is Dr Lena Jaspersen from the Leeds University Business School. Now, we work on challenge-driven research. What we really are aiming to do with our work is improve the well-being of people who live with incontinence all over the world. At the moment, we're really focusing on the experiences of women with incontinence and how they talk about that and how we can open up conversations to discuss that more so that we can design better products, services and facilities to help improve that well-being. So we're just going to have a chat now about how our project came about, where we're at the moment and where we're hoping we'll be able to go with it in the future. I think a couple of years ago I was introduced to someone who works on surgical techniques for incontinence.
True, we had this initiative in engineering, and because I work on innovation management, they contacted me because they had this idea there are so many new technologies and devices we could use for treating incontinence or doing better products, but it's really difficult to get people interested in incontinence. So they asked me, well, what can we do to have better innovation in that field? Yeah, so that was the kind of first step. So we decided we need to understand, in order to develop better products, in order to develop better solutions, we definitely need a better understanding of what the experience is actually like. If you have some kind of engineer who imagines a solution, it may not actually fit the lived experience of a woman having these problems. Yet, because it's so embarrassing to talk about it, it's actually not easy for even people who are kind of already developing incontinence products like pads or so to get feedback on their products and how to do things better. So, bearing that in mind, and with your work also around hygiene and menstruation, we got more and more into this idea, well, how can we learn about these experiences and how they are articulated and how we can ensure that they are heard and understood better.
And there's so much more to the experience of incontinence than just incontinence pads, for example. I work more on sanitation facilities, so can people get to toilets, do people have access to water to wash and soap and all those kind of things, as well as the experience of something which we know is quite stigmatized in our society in terms of odor or age and being considered you're a child or you're an elderly person if you are incontinent. So I think it just straight away, once we all started talking, realised it was a very systemic issue that wasn't just about products, it was about lots of experiences.
And treatments as well. I mean, we then had this vaginal mesh scandal happening and we had a lot of insecurity around that. What does it mean if, someone offers me treatment? What are the implications? How is this studied? How does that correspond to different experiences women have with this issue?
Yeah. So I think we initially were thinking about how can we innovate in terms of incontinence products, services, facilities, and thinking big picture in that way. And obviously to do that, because we're all working in participatory research, we thought we needed to start talking to people.
Yeah.
And we thought, all right, we'll give it a go. We've got a little bit of money. We'll try and entice people with some cake to campus to talk about their own experiences of incontinence. And we found it really hard to get people to come along.
Yes.
And to open up about it. And at the same time, actually, that was when we had recruited Izzy, a summer intern.
Yes.
And she had started looking at how women online discuss incontinence and was getting some interesting results.
Yes, I think that was both in parallel, and I think the workshops were very insightful because we had very different stakeholders. So we had midwives and yoga instructors, as well as people having the personal experiences of being affected by this issue. But it was right. I mean, recruiting these focus groups we did with them was a huge challenge. And then also we felt, since Izzy developed these interesting insights from different online forums, in particular Mumsnet, why do we kind of try to coax people into talking to us when there are public conversations already happening? And that kind of, even though none of us actually had a background in looking at online forums as a resource whatsoever, neither me in innovation management nor you in Washington Civil Engineering and toilets. But we felt maybe we should just take seriously that this is an environment where people want to talk about this and to learn more about how and why maybe they choose this forum, and how they can express these experiences. Because what our summer intern, who was in linguistics, in her studies actually, already started exploring was the kind of use of emoticons and silences also within that text. And I think that's how you, Bethan, then got involved, because we were kind of so lost in this kind of more linguistic perspective that we were really excited that you decided to join this team.
Yeah, I mean, my background is looking at how conversations work, and I have looked at a number of things online, so discussion boards on things like attitudes to language and all sorts of things. But what I can bring to it is a set of skills that I can apply to any kind of conversation. So it doesn't really matter what I'm looking at. I can look at, what do people talk about it? How do they phrase it? What strategies do they use? And what does that tell us about how they feel about what they're talking about? Is it easy for them? Is it hard? How do they sort of signal those things? So things like emojis, online is one key thing. But there are lots of kind of more subtle sort of syntactic and structural things that are going on as well. And I find that as a linguist really interesting. But, when I choose to kind of go off and analyse something, I want to analyse something that I'm engaged by, that I feel will have an impact on the wider world. And, women's health is something that's been so under-researched over the years. Women's particular needs have almost always taken a back seat. And this has often led to sort of social justice issues, because there are lots of women out there who haven't got the treatment that they need, and this is very negatively impacting their lives. So I thought it was a really nice project to get involved with, from both my kind of theoretical interest, but also this impact it could have on people in the world.
And I think that's a big reason for myself as well. Working in sanitation is. There's a big movement now to have user-led design in terms of toilets and bathing facilities and everything. But there kind of seems to be an assumption that you just go and you talk to people, you find out what they want, and then you can design it. And really what I noticed once we started trying to talk about this in our focus group discussions is that how you bring up these topics and how you get people to talk about things and to tell you what they genuinely think and not what they think you want to hear is really crucial. And it made me reevaluate as a water and sanitation practitioner how well we actually structure those conversations and think about how we can get people to talk about it before we rush to implementing a solution. So for me, it's been really interesting to work on this, because I've been able to take a step back and say, okay, we want to develop new products and services and facilities, but we need to have those conversations, and that is a really key part of being able to develop something that people want to use.
And also something that they can find out about and will be supported in using, because one of the things I think we've seen from the Mumsnet discussions is that there's actually quite a lot of stuff out there and quite a lot of help out there, but people aren't, for whatever reason, able to or willing to access it. And it's about not just about the products, but then how they are made available to women and through what kind of routes.
And different frames as well. I think what we see, which I found remarkable reading these conversations on Mumsnet, is the extent of how lonely women feel in this situation. How many do not even want to talk to their friend, how they feel fobbed off by their GP who says, yeah, well, this happens after you had 3 children, and they didn't dare to say, yeah, well, but maybe not to that extent, So to what extent the problem may be a physical one. It is very uncomfortable, to have wet pants, and it may smell, and it's all very difficult. But also the kind of loneliness and the stigma as associated. It's so difficult. And then stepping back, saying, okay, we have these engineers, they want to develop these kind of new solutions and new products, but how can they have a meaningful conversation when these women cannot even have a conversation with their friends about this topic?
Or their partners.
Or their partners. So
there's a lot about relationships and
absolutely.
impacts on continence.
And I think what we learn now from analyzing these conversations is how can this topic be brought up so that it creates a kind of more open environment, more of an opportunity to kind of break that silence and have that conversation. And how can we kind of understand then kind of products or solutions in the broader context, so that it's not just about that there is some pet or product, but also how it is marketed. Yeah, so there are some incontinence products that are so deeply associated with old age and challenges around that this by itself becomes barrier to actually using the product. So I think these nuances is something we learn a lot from Mumsnet, and the importance of understanding how to navigate stigma and taboo and how to navigate conversations around the topic.
And I mean, thinking about what it is that you're trying to get out of starting these conversations. So some people go onto Mumsnet because they'd like some advice. Some people just want to have a chat, or like you said, because they're lonely and they want to hear that other people experience similar issues as them, or hear about how they can work on it. And I think that's really helping us see the different reasons that people engage and how to engage them as well.
And the kind of knowledge they generate. I think to what extent is it always better to know about different treatment options or different products, but also how do I navigate our local healthcare system? How do I actually access the services of an incontinence nurse?
And when should I push hard?
When should I push hard? Where do I have to expect that boundaries are going to happen? How do certain diagnostics look like? How in practice, what will a doctor or nurse expect me to do or to articulate? I think these things are really, really important. And this kind of handouts you can obtain somewhere online on the NHS website, there are different types of incontinence, you can do this and this. They only provide you so much in terms of this more tacit knowledge, how to live with the condition, which many women experience as deeply shameful.
It's about holistic well-being that we need to work on. Even if people do feel that they can live quietly and have pads and manage physically their incontinence, there's a lot of people who are out there struggling from many other factors of the experience.
And or we even had colleagues joining our group here, the workshops groups, saying they basically plan their day and how they walk across campus where the toilets are. And when you imagine this is a small observation, but it shows you how much impact this has.
Yes.
Because there are many things this colleague won't be doing, or trips she won't do, or projects, because she's anxious that she may not have a toilet accessible to her at the right time.
Yeah, and I mean, we definitely see that for people who identify as having incontinence, but we're also seeing in the threads people who have what we would call probably social incontinence, where they do have control of their bladder, they know when they need to go to the bathroom and things, but they're so worried that they won't be able to get to a bathroom that they won't go out of the house, or they'll plan everything exactly along those routes. And that's also something that is not talked about, but has a big impact on people's lives.
So from that perspective, at the moment, the main focus of the research is we've moved past these initial workshops that kind of sensitized us a bit to see where do we want to look at, which also showed to us how difficult it is to open up about the topic. And now we are more in this kind of digging deeper into this kind of Mumsnet forum where we extracted in a kind of more systematic way all the different threads where this conversation is currently happening, and mainly led by Bethan at the moment, we look at how can we analyze this, both coming from our individual social science perspective, but in particular the linguistic perspective. As I think it's important for us to understand how can we break that silence. I mean, what is the kind of conversation to have with women being who are affected by this, that they feel comfortable and confident to actually share their experiences and help us to develop better solutions in the long run. Is that more or less?
Yeah, and I mean, for me, it would be, in the long run, I'd love to look at how you can open up these conversations in different contexts, and how similar it is talking to women with incontinence in different scenarios. So, for example, I'm hoping to work with women who experience incontinence in refugee camps, and, are we able to start the conversations in the same way as they are started on Mumsnet, or is there another, is it very contextual how we have to do that in different settings? And if we can't understand how to do that, how are we actually supporting people with incontinence? So that's a really practical side I'm hoping that we're going to move towards eventually.
So it's whatever we learn from Mumsnet, we're going to have to look at different cultures and think about what the sort of taboo structures in those cultures, and thinking about how this might fit in, and then engaging with that in a kind of sensitive manner to try and find out.
Yes, for sure. And is it that we need to go again and start from scratch with these kinds of research to look at these conversations in other contexts?
Yeah. Or does it give us some thoughts and ways in that we can?
Yeah, and I guess we'll see.
We will see that, and also I think how we connect again with other disciplines, because I think in a way you're based in civil engineering, you're in linguistics, I'm in a business school. I mean, that's actually quite an unorthodox combination if you look at this topic. But of course we also work with colleagues in the School of Healthcare. There was this initial initiative in the engineering side of things. So in a way I think we are reaching out and recombining our ideas and hope that this will develop into kind of a slowly but surely into kind of a bigger and broader initiative. We have a PhD student now who works on the topic. So yeah, we hope to develop more momentum, and I hope that this video will maybe also contribute and engage people to talk to us if they want to kind of follow up.
We'd always love to have conversations about this.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening. We hope you found it interesting, and we'd love you to get in touch if you want to hear more about the project. We've actually got a few different outputs that we've already published on our website, so if you look below you'll find the details of those. Thanks.